video is huge. Today, I decided to learn Chinese and completely drop Japanese. The fact of the matter is, stepping into being able to learn Mandarin in today's day and age is going to revolutionize your world. If you can see the facts, if you can see the figures, I was told from my father yesterday that Chinese are going to make up a third of the population in the year 2050. The same with Indians. Now, the rest of the world, the minority, is going to make up the other third of that, including the United States of America. So what does that mean for the future? What does that mean for business? What does that mean for your own success? It means you either take part in this competition and domination, or you find new ways to collaborate. And what that means for me is I'm going to learn the language and pay my respects with a third of the population, so that in 30 years from now, when I'm 50 and in my prime, I'm going to be able to fluently speak and take part in massive world-changing events. And I won't have to have a bunch of translators doing it for me. I paid my respects to speak with these world leaders who happen to speak Mandarin, Chinese, maybe even Cantonese coming up in the future. Right now, my focus is on Mandarin. Why? Why did I make this decision? Why is ROI so important in my life? Let me break it down for you. Realistically speaking, I've spent close to 3 months now learning Japanese. The reason for me learning Japanese was so that I could go initially and visit Japan, take my father with me. He promised me when I was like 11 years old that we were gonna go to Japan together. Didn't happen, okay? Then he told me we're gonna do it when I turn 18. Didn't happen, okay? Not even with my brother. We didn't go. So, failed promises, okay, fine, okay. You know, you wanted to teach me the Japanese language at a very young age. But things fell out and we stopped learning, and my dad has a very methodical, analytic process of being able to teach something. So if it doesn't go his way, things go a little out of hand. Okay, so I'm not going to learn Japanese. Perfectly fine. Okay. I'm not going to travel to Japan before I'm 18. Perfectly fine. My plans were to go to Japan and be there in March, end of March, early April, to travel there, spend some time with my father. However, things did not quite go as planned in my own mind. I wanted to be able to pass the Japanese language proficiency test for JLPT4 by November 16th, 2018, in which case that would help me also create a 500-man group on Facebook who are also Japanese speakers. Now, the transition from that is I get to buy plane tickets. Exciting! Yes, I want to buy plane tickets and go to Japan. Absolutely. And then be able to travel there and have the money and everything behind me in March and early April and bring my father. Things changed around. I offered an invitation for my father to come. He came up with probably every excuse possible as for why he couldn't. And then I was left with despair. Oh, I can't spend time with my father. The proposal of my dreams can't come true. So now, what am I going to do? Now I've got to take my own personal time, my own riches, my own health and development to be able to learn more about my long-lost family, the family I never met over there. Okay, well, how am I going to do that? Well, first I got to find them. You know, we haven't talked to them, we haven't heard about them, their whereabouts in quite some time. But then I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to do, but the drive isn't strong enough. It's there, but it's not there because I don't know the people. I don't know anything about them. I just know that they're my family. So now that that all closed off and the picture is kind of sealed, because I studied, I did a decent amount, but I was doing minimal. I wasn't doing enough. I was doing 30 minutes a day minimum, and a lot of days I missed that count. So moving forward, I had to understand, hey, this is going to be a really complex project, and at the rate you're learning, you should be doing 4 hours a day if you want to be able to create an impactful study. Is that something that you're really going to go forward and do? Well, yeah, but I'll probably be a very minimalist and just know the basics of when I go to Japan is what was going to happen if I actually continue to think and execute upon it like that. So I was at a grounds where I wasn't producing enough, and I needed to do much more. The drive, the why wasn't enough. Now things have taken a turn around. That goal, which I didn't read every single day as they tell you to do in Think and Grow Rich, must not have been strong enough or empowering enough for my desire and my emotions to be able to come into the mix and turn that dream into a reality. Now, last night, I happened to speak with my father. I made a video on it. He says that Japan is declining. The economy is declining. The birth rate's declining. A lot of things are declining, deteriorating, so to speak. And he says one massive earthquake or tsunami could completely wipe out the country. It'd be gone. It would be irrelevant. Japan is just an island people, a very small island with very smart people. Japan is just a very small island with very smart people. That's what he told me. And you know what? It's true. Highly intellectual individuals house Japan. However, they are facing a crisis that takes more than logical thinking. It takes emotional upbringing. How are we going to solve basically an epidemic that's going to kill off our entire population when we're faced with an older growing population? People above 60 or 65 make up a quarter of Japan's population. And they're not producing enough children because they're too scared of some of the economic factors. They're not making enough money. So people can't have and breed and give new life into this world. So there's this massive scarcity mentality and not enough production. So if there continues to be this decline, my dad basically said in the next 15 years, I don't know if he said 10 to 15 or 15 to 20 years, Japan will not be taken as seriously, and then they will face a massive drop in collaboration, productive means, all that good stuff. Okay? He basically said Japan is, from what I see, no longer the superior authority, no longer the economic superpower. It's declining. It's on the decline. And from what research I did today, he's right. So, when it comes to the facts and the figures and logically thinking, what is the ROI on learning Japanese? Well, the video said by like 2080, the population will decrease to 40 million. That's a massive drop if things keep going the way they're going. And it's collective perspective and means for their survival. And they can either have people migrate into Japan and contribute to the economy, or do something about it within. And that's pretty hard, man. They literally have more adult diapers being sold in marketplaces than baby diapers. That is frightening. So what it really comes down to, my friends, what all this is going to be about is me taking the step and leg in to doing something that's in demand, but there's not enough supply for. And that would be leadership coaching for Chinese. Voila. I will be coaching and speaking with high-level executives in companies who are executing in Japan. That's the goal. That is the priority. Me stepping into a leadership position, learning everything I can about it, and if not leadership coaching, it's going to be focused on serving a very niche market that isn't tapped so much as having primary roles in a communist country. These people need help, and they're not very receptive of it. So to be able to gain that trust, that ability to connect with people of a completely different culture, perspective, ideals, I'll have to work my way in by building the most integral relationships over time. And the only way to do that for a very closed-off country is not to have a translator speak for me, but to learn the culture and the language myself and take part in something much, much greater. The Chinese are a very relational people. I watched this video today by Locke, and he's the king of high-ticket sales. If you don't know him, I wouldn't say I admire him at this point. I don't know enough about him. Basically, he said 3 things. 3 things you need to know to be able to get close to Chinese people in business. 1, you need to be able to establish a relationship first. Chinese people would much rather go out and have a drink, eat, have more of a social gathering rather than a business meeting. Eventually, when you get to, more of the business relational terms for something like that, when you sit down and have that meeting, you basically close the deal. It's done, signed. Number 2, if you want to be able to better establish yourself as that credible authority with Chinese people, what you have to do is have a track record. You have to have the history. You have to have the proof. So that's another thing I got to do to set the standards and the results for what I want to be able to achieve long term. Number 3, if you want to network with these people and get really close to the leaders, then it's good to have an established relationship with people around those leaders. So, establish relationships with the man under them. Their left-hand man, their right-hand man, the people who happen to be within that company or organization. So we're thinking long-term success here. How are we going to be bound for something that is so critical? Well, to be honest, I haven't thought so far out yet. But to be very realistic, here's how it's gonna go. Because I spoke to myself, I came up with reasons, and I came up with procedures, and I came up with perspective in my mind. A basic plan and constitution I will have to abide by. Okay. We're gonna talk. We're gonna talk business. Why am I learning Chinese? What is the purpose? What is the reason? How am I going to go about this process to be able to make this happen in any given season? What is the real result that I'm trying to obtain? I'm trying to learn Chinese so I can be able to delve into a space that is niched. So niched that other people won't go and do what I choose to do. You have to be unreasonable in your dedications, your dreams, your ambitions. If you really want to stand out, then you have to be willing to do things that other people won't do. Now you gotta grind, you gotta eat dirt, you gotta do things that hurt, that you hate. But in the end, these things will pay off. These things will work. They'll produce a greater means, and invested results come back through those productive means. So, how am I going to do this? I'm here to learn Chinese. I'm here to be able to create a very simple and executable process, and I haven't completely thought it out yet. I just decided I gotta go learn Chinese, because the benefit of learning any language is that you get to be able to communicate with so many different people and connect on a deeper level. What I learned from studying Japanese culture is that basically, if you're gonna go and learn Japanese and study that, the people are much more receptive to English speakers. People are much more receptive to people who are outside of the country, foreigners. And you can much rather get by speaking Japanese, English. You can much rather get by speaking English than actually learning the Japanese language. People are actually terrified of you uttering words in English, because they're like, oh, I gotta take my 5 years of learning in Japanese and be able to conjure up a sentence that makes sense. Oh, but when you speak Japanese, they suddenly become relaxed. And it isn't exactly something that they remark upon as, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing, he's incredible. They're more like, sugoi, he knows English. Wow, phenomenal, right? Well, kind of, but also kind of wrong. I'm not here to be able to learn Japanese to go and live in Japan. So the importance of the demand isn't there. The supply is only in one fixed location for the most part of the world. And everybody else, well, they happen to be scattered. You know, how many people can you really network with and develop relationships who aren't in tiny little parts of the world and who actually stand out as a figure authority? I don't know, where are you going to find it? Okay, so now you see giant developments of countries like India, like China, who are proliferating at massive rates to be able to create an extent of, this is going to be a third of the population in 30 years. And India is going to make up the other third. So the reason why I'm learning Chinese is to be able to speak with a massive amount of that population. China, the GDP is actually going to surpass the United States in about a decade. Okay, so like around 2028, this is an estimation, China is going to crush the United States economy. Now, they may not be producing the most advanced technologies here. The United States is very advanced in many fields, but China happens to be one of the world's, or the world's largest producer of energy. And they use solar panels to be able to do this. So they are creating renewable energy, and they are ahead of the game, crushing the supply and dominating, okay? And they also had cryptocurrency, blockchain. They have 71% of all Bitcoin mining. Wow. And the United States is at 1%. The runner-up is India at 4%. Holy cow. They have a massive land grab on this digital economy. Blockchain. That is terrifying, because the reason why they devote themselves to doing something like this is because their government has a certain amount of control as for what goes. So the government says, you're gonna work on building this solar panel field, it gets done. Everybody contributes in that sector. So it's like the Hunger Games, bam, in China, okay? Although they're not fighting each other to kill each other, each sector has their own thing, each district, right? So China is going to be a massive economic superpower. Now, I'm not just thinking in terms of money, I'm thinking in terms of relationships. Eventually, China's gonna have to open up to greater means of trade, to greater means of being able to expand. And they're gonna need developments in their leadership, because they kind of are closed off to the other parts of the world to some extent. They're going to need to have outside information and knowledge to be able to help them grow, right?
So where they're lacking, where they don't have much development, from what I believe, I haven't done much research on it, is the personal development field. They don't have this mindset of we gotta become our best selves. Why? Because it's a communist country. Everybody's kind of civil and the same, and they're not trying to develop for their own gain. They do everything for this centralized power, and they happen to get paid pretty well for it. So say somebody is really good at soccer, right? And they really develop these soccer skills, and they could well enough be a pro. What ends up happening is, oh, we happen to notice that this guy's really good at soccer. And then they report it to other people. Everybody starts to find out, and it gets to the hands of the government, and the government comes knocking on your door. Hey, what's up? Hey, we heard you're good at soccer. Yeah, I am. Okay. Well, what we're gonna do now is you're gonna go play for our team, and you're gonna practice 12 hours a day, and you're gonna get really, really good, and we'll help house all your family. And we'll help take care of them. You don't have to worry about that, but you're gonna play soccer for us. And this is how things are gonna go. Basically, anybody who can be bought and who can produce at a higher potential, who they can sell their services or contribute to a greater cause, is going to be used to a greater benefit for the country. So people go and learn a specific field over in the United States, they gain knowledge, they gain massive experience, and oftentimes we see that these people taken aback to going to China or going back to India to be able to develop their motherland, their country. So with something like this, you'll see a lot of different shifts in how the development of one uniform country is going to grow at a much more massive rate, even though, in my mind, going to another country, seeing the benefits, and knowing this is something that is, substantially something I agree with, something I like, and I enjoy the atmosphere, the environment, the people, and the opportunity. Okay, so I'm going to withdraw from America. Doesn't make much sense to me, but for another country and their culture, their background, it might make sense. So this basic knowledge that I've been able to take grasp of in more of the macro scale at large relates to me at the micro. How am I going to move these cogs and execute well enough without having that oil wasted? And it really comes down to being able to have my own proliferation with a society that I can be able to really hone in on and touch base with that nobody else is doing. And I'm just saying, at the basics, demand is going to be there, supply will not. Therefore, at scale, you are going to grow at a massive rate. So, when I touch base there, I'm going to focus on leadership, and I'm going to focus on coaching. I believe I ask very good questions. So in doing that, I'm going to be able to go into the Chinese community and ask questions, but also share how they can do things, provide advice and expertise in the field. And that's a mix between both Western and Chinese culture. Western culture happens to ask great questions in coaching, and they pull the answers out of themselves as clients. So when I start speaking with some of these top tier individuals, people who are at the top of China or executives within a large organization, what's going to happen is, well, I'm going to be giving advice based on their way of learning. They take advice, they use it, and I'm also going to focus on asking really good questions. So my basis for this foundation is to really establish these next 4-5 years, getting the grounding in the coaching realm, and creating my own American-made business. And I'm going to start speaking with a lot of different individuals, likely people from the United States, first to begin with, the most important. Then I'm going to hit up Australia, a larger economy, that is growing at a much more significant rate, the coaching space too, and also talk with a little bit of people in New Zealand, people in the United Kingdom, other English-speaking countries that I can be able to collaborate with. Now, when my focus is set in on helping the United States of America, I'm going to be doing a lot of speaking engagements, not only here, but also across the world. And this all has to come from a certain skill or expertise or background, right? So my fascination is in people, is in creating connection. So that's why I really think that leadership or mindset or something along the lines of some sort of personal development factor in any space or expanse is going to have to be really fixated on developing people. And that's what leadership is. So if I can be able to go into an organization and speak with the executives, the people who are making decisions, then I'm going to be able to create a much more substantial change and impact millions of lives rather than the few of, say, solopreneurs in the coaching realm or people who have a small business. Of course, that leadership creates a chain reaction, and it also continues to trickle up and down as well in an expansive field. So my focus is to be able to speak with top tier individuals who are going to contribute to a greater cause and unity throughout the world. So I don't see this as a competitive edge or a matter of dominating. I see the importance in all of this as a matter of collaborating. So being able to work with these different countries, people around the world, I think we're really fixated on industrial age thinking. Now this may be my naive belief. I made a post on Instagram yesterday about this. Essentially, we're in the information age. And what that means is we have the internet. We have the most massive technological shift you will ever see and witness and experience in your lifetime. What we're literally dealing with here, Google, being able to think up an idea and have that imagination manifest into reality, you having your mind on knowledge right there within seconds of the flick of a fingertip. Right there, that central database is also a massive tool to be able to connect and communicate with other individuals across the world. So what we're witnessing here is not only the world's largest ledger and platform for basically the world's resource of knowledge, wisdom, expertise, but we also have a means of communicating and projecting that message with the rest of the world. So if you don't understand, if your mind is not blown by me speaking about this, then congratulations, you've survived a massive epidemic of ignorant people. Now what we're gonna have to do is take all of this knowledge, harness it, and project it back out into the world in a much more refined manner with your own taste, expertise, and you gotta build your brand around that, your own personal brand, your own business. You have to grab digital real estate, your brand, your website, your social mediums, and you have to get your message out there, take that land grab, and develop it so that you can reach up in your level of influence as that credible authority. The internet is going to change the entirety of the world at scale. There is no avoiding it. You see virtual reality, you see holograms, you see all of these amazing things changing in the world. And if you're witnessing it and you're not doing anything about it to take advantage of this massive opportunity, then you are losing out. You know, people of previous generations, they can see it, they realize it, but they don't accept it because they're actually terrified. They're terrified of anything that happened to come before or after.